Alright, so greetings everyone. So I will be your professor for Philippine Literature. My name is Peter James Marobang and I hope you will enjoy our discussion. Alright, Philippine Literature. So what's the difference between Philippine Literature and other literature? Well, specifically when we talk about Philippine Literature, we're only going to talk about all the literary works here in the Philippines. Well, not necessarily all, but literary works here in the Philippines. We're going to discuss it. And we won't mind any other literature. We won't mind American literature. We won't mind Afro-Asian literature. We won't mind Sun Tzu's Art of War. We won't mind Mahabharata, and so forth. So we're going to talk only about the literary works here in the Philippines. Alright, so for better understanding of our subject matter, Philippine literature, it is important for us to know the meaning of the word literature itself. Now, if you can turn your module to page 2, you can see there the definitions of the word literature. Now, when we talk about literature, the term literature itself came from the Latin word which means letters, no? Litera, from the word litera, meaning letters. So kapag daw may letters, literature na yan. Another meaning is, literature is anything that is written or printed in a form of a book, a magazine, a pamphlet, or even a newspaper. It is considered as literature. Well, it's actually the manifolds of man's experiences, put it in one harmonious expression. So yun ang nakalagay dyan sa inyong module. So, kung tatagalogin natin siya, so, based from a man's experience, no? Tapos, isinulat niya, nilagay niya yun sa isang sulatin, halimbawa sa libro, it is already considered as a literature. Another meaning or definition given from your module is, it is actually the product of a man's thoughts, ideas, emotions. Well, syempre, ano pa bang isusulat ng tao? Ay di syempre based from their experiences, no, sa kanyang nararamdaman, no. However, hindi lang siya basta galing sa isip, ano, at saka sa emosyon or expression ng tao. Nilagay niya ito in a beautiful manner, no. Kaya nga sabi niya sa module niyo aspiration coach in a beautiful language is literature. Now, for you to understand it more, a very good example of that is from the book of Florante and Laura, kung natatandaan nyo. One of the line there says, kapag ang pag-ibig ay pumasok sa puso ni numan, hahamakin ang lahat, masunod ka lamang. That is actually a very, very beautiful line from that book. No? Napakaganda niya. Baka naman may magsabi sa inyo na, sir, kaya lang naman it sounds beautiful kasi binanggit mo, sinampit mo ng maganda. Hindi, no? Kahit hindi ko sambitin na maganda yon in a manner ng poetic ang pagkakasabi ko, basahin mo lang siya ng walang sounds. Nandun agad diba? Na napakaganda ng mga linyang binibitawan doon sa libro na yun. So, yeah, yun yung proof na it is actually put in a beautiful language to make it a literature. Well, not necessarily lahat naman ay dapat maganda para ma-considered na literature. Paano naman yung mga pangit? Hindi. Paano naman yung mga normal lang, normal flow? Later on in our discussion, malalaman nyo yan. Basta, literature is anything that is written actually based from a man's thought, put it in a one manner of, let's say, for an example, a book or article, it is already considered as literature. However, hindi naman lahat na nakasulat ay literature. Let's say, for example, mga announcement sa parke, halimbawa, bawal umihi dito. Oo nga naman. It is written, it is printed, literature na kaagad. Hindi, no? Hindi yun gano'n. Hindi bakit nakalagay doon ay nakaprinta ay bawal umihi dito. Literature na kaagad yun. Tandaan nyo, pag sinabi nating literature, well, it is not only written, but it is actually from a man's expression, thoughts, ideas, no? put it in a beautiful manner or put it in a beautiful language, that can be considered as literature. Sir, beautiful manner naman yun bawal umihi dito. At saka, sir, expression din naman yun ng tao, bawal umihi dito. Hindi talaga. Hindi yun makukonsider nating literature, no? Later on, masasagot natin yan in our discussion, no? Another meaning here is literature is a product of one's imagination also. And it is, well, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's based from our imagination. Yes, it's true that literature can be a product of one's imagination and can be based from a true-to-life experience or story of a man. A good example based from the truth is the newspaper. It is factual. It is based from the truths, no? And also a biography kind of literature. Let's say the lives and works of Rizal. So, yon, example siya ng literature based from the truths. Another one is literature as a product of one's imagination. Maraming yan. Yung Wolverine sa X-Men, yung Harry Potter ni J.K. Rowling. Yeah, those are based from their imagination or from the author's imagination. So it is also as literature, fictional, kumbaga. So hello everyone. So nandito ako ngayon sa aming bahay, specifically sa kwarto ko. Ganyan tayo kadakila, work from home. Anyways, on my previous video, we discussed about the definitions on the word literature itself, ano? So, napag-usapan natin kanina yung what is literature, 'di ba? Kung anything that is written, tas put into a beautiful language can be considered as literature na daw yung mga yon. However, that leaves the question, how can we identify if a written work is actually a literature, no? Now, for us to identify if a written work is a literature, we have to consider two major things. The first thing is the categories in literature, and the other one is the divisions in literature or the general types in literature. First thing first, categories in literature. May dalawang categories ang literature. A literature can be a fiction or a non-fiction. So kapag sinabi nating fiction, ito yung from the word itself, fictitious, meaning to say imagination, ano? Based from our imagination or based from one's imagination or the imagination of author itself, no? And the other one is non-fiction. Well, kabaligtaran siya nung fiction, which means hindi na siya imagination. Ang non-fiction ay based from the truth. Good examples of fictions are mga katulad ng binigay ko kanina, X-Men, Angels and Demons, si Dan Brown, yung The Alchemist, yan. So lahat ng produkto ng imahinasyon ng author at nilagay sa libro ay sinadula or make a story out of it, or katulad din ng mga animes na napapanood natin sa magazines, no? At saka yung sa mga manga, yeah, those are the examples of fictions, katang isip. The other one is the non-fiction. Examples ito ay syempre kung based from the truth yan, so malamang sa malamang yung newspaper, real time, no, nangyari. At saka yung autobiography, no, ng isang tao, halimbawa dyan yung kay Rizal, yung life and works of Rizal. So those are the examples of non-fiction. So, yun yung pinagkaiba ng dalawa. Literature. So, those are the two categories of literature. It can be fiction or a non-fiction literature. Now, let's talk about the divisions or the major division in literature, or known as the two general types in literature. Ano yung unang uri ng literature? Poetry. Pangalawa ay prose. So siguro alam niyo naman kung anong pinagkaiba ng poetry at prose, no? Kung kukunin niyo yung inyong mga modules, specifically, makikita niyo dito sa page na ito. Ayan. Tcharan! Yan. Yung prose and poetry. Meron dyan nakalagay na forms, language, appeal, aim. No? So, yun yung dalawang divisions of literature or also considered as the two major types of literature. The first one is poetry. Pag sinabi natin poetry, it is written in stanzas or verse form, no? Kumbaga sa halimbawa, gumagawa tayo ng essay, yung mga kino-consider nating paragraph. Pagdating sa poetry, hindi paragraph ang tawag doon, kundi mga stanza, no? O kaya ay mga verses. So yun yung tawag doon, stanza. Ang lines pala ay verses, tapos ang mga paragraph ay considered as stanza pagdating sa poetry. And also, it is written in a poetic way. No? Kabaligtaran siya ng prose na ang pagkakasulat sa kanya ay normal flow of conversation. So parang ganito, if we're talking with one another, like in mangas, at saka sa mga magazines, kapag nag-uusap yung mga characters, yun, ganun. Normal flow. Tsaka yung sa mga stories, halimbawa ay The Three Little Pigs. Kung napakinggan nyo yung story, yung nabasa nyo yung Three Little Pigs. So, ganun lang siya. Nagnanarrate yung author in a normal flow of conversation. Unlike pagdating sa poetry, poetic ang kanyang pagkakadeliver. So, yun yung pinagkaiba ng dalawang yun. So, those are the two categories. Those are the two division in poetry, in linguistics. So, huwag kayong malilito ha. So, categories, it's either fiction or non-fiction. Kapag division, it's either poetry or prose. Now, how can we identify if a written work is a literature? Yung example natin kanina, yung announcement na bawal umihi dito. So, yes, it is written. So, we might consider that as literature kasi nakasulat siya. So, tingnan natin kung magfo-fall siya doon sa categories at saka doon sa divisions ng literature. Fiction ba siya or non-fiction? Well, definitely non-fiction siya. Totoo. Ini-insist niya bawal umihi dito. So, okay. Pwede na siya maging literature. Pero wait lang. Meron pa tayong division. Tingnan natin. Poetry ba siya or prose? Hindi naman siya poetry kasi hindi naman siya written in a poetic way. Bawal umihi dito. Hindi naman ganoon eh. Hindi, bawal umihi dito. Tapos in a normal flow of conversation ba siya? Well, oo, pero hindi siya complete sentence eh. At saka hindi siya complete thought na, bakit bawal umihi dito? Doesn't make sense, no? Sa simpleng ganun. So, hindi siya mag-fall sa category ng division, no? Hindi siya mag-fall sa division ng literature. So, we cannot consider that as literature, yung mga announcements, ano? Generally speaking, announcements, those are not literature. However, kapag naglagay sa isang halimbawa ay sa isang tawag doon bulletin board na may article doon, may proverbs, pwede natin siya ma-consider na literature. Halimbawa ay wag mong gawin sa kapwa mo ang ayaw mong gawin sa iyo. That's a golden rule. Well, we consider that as a literature, although it's an announcement, kasi nag-fall siya sa non-fiction, it is based from the truth, and also it is written, put it in a beautiful manner, language, and we can also consider that as a poetry. Okay. Wag mong gawin sa kapwa mo ang ayaw mong gawin sa'yo. No? Nagra-rhyme siya, mo sa'yo. Diba? So, poetry siya. So, yun. Pwede natin siya ma-consider as literature. Pero yung bawal umihi dito, hindi pwede yun.